Welcome to the Free Cheese episode 485. I'm your Joe Dix, joined by Mark Augustiniak.
What's up?
Matt Selner.
Hello.
The Free Cheese is a weekly video game podcast about video games brought to you once a week by thefreecheese.com. Welcome to the Season 10 finale. We wrap up a year in video games, 2022 specifically. This week, we're going to look back at our list that we've built this year, where we have ranked and rated and reviewed 45 video games. I keep forgetting the number that we've actually played this year, but we've played and reviewed and ranked 45 video games. We'll talk a little bit about our favorite video games, both from what we've done on the podcast and also just that we've played in 2022. Before that, I'd like to know, Matt, Mark, what was your favorite boss fight from 2022? Of any video games, doesn't matter, just something you played in 2022, what was your favorite boss fight?
I think I know the name, but I don't want to fuck up which R it is.
I have a guess at which game you are referring to. While you're banging that... Oh, you got it?
Already got it.
Riker,
Riker,
hit it.
the Lord of Blasphemy.
Of course, yes, the Lord of Blasphemy. Why was Rykert so special of a boss fight?
He is one of those unique bosses in a From Software game where you could technically walk into it at any level and be on even ground, which makes for interesting design when things are balanced. Like, balanced in the sense of, like, your level doesn't really matter.
Yeah, that makes sense. Mark, how about you? Favorite boss fight of 2022?
It's hard to really remember a lot of them. So I'm going to have to go with a more recent one. I think it's the first boss fight in Sonic Frontiers.
Oh, where you're talking about? Gosh, what are those things called? The Titans. One of the Titans.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, when you first get to go supersonic.
Yeah, it just goes full, like, anime music video.
Yes. Very good. Great music, great combat. The fact that you're supersonic, which always felt like something very difficult to do in a classic 2D Sonic game, but it's like just naturally part of the story.
Even 3D, it's typically like an end game thing, but
yeah,
they start with it.
Yeah, give the people what they want, you know? I fully support it. I think, in retrospect, it's difficult because there's a lot of good boss fights this year. And in this game in particular, there were 3 major monsters added that I quite enjoyed fighting. But in Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, we had 3... one monster that is essentially Frankenstein, another one that is Frankenstein's monster. Essentially, we have the Wolfman, and then we have Dracula. And to be honest, I think Garngola was probably my favorite of them, just because of how... Maybe it's because it was the first one you interact with, and the way you discover him, you find you have to counter his elemental attacks was very neat. The other 2 felt more traditional, but this kind of added different flavor to it. But I think, generally speaking, that Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak expansion was pretty dang exciting overall. Before we jump into our favorite games of 2022 as a whole, briefly just want to touch on Season 10 and what we did a little differently this year. So we sort of cast aside all of what we'd normally done for the last decade of the Free Cheese podcast and instead opted to play and rank one video game per week all year long. Granted, there were 7 weeks without a game ranking because we only did 45. But generally speaking, we played 45 games. We talked about one apiece per week, and then we ranked it on a list, which you can follow along with over at thefreecheese.com/thelist. And early on, I think up through, what was that, March or April maybe? It wasn't like the first full half, but it was a good chunk. We were kind of truncating all of the game talk to a 30-minute window. And we were kind of hard about cutting off at 30 minutes, cramming all of our thoughts and feelings in there. We would do some regular videogamepodcast.com, segments, and then we'd come back and rank the game at the very end of it, where this back half plus of the year, we really leaned into, let's just talk about the game, the whole episode. Dedicate the whole episode to the game, rank it, and I feel like it's been a lot better in this back half, just being able to hang out and talk about the game itself and not feel pressured to move on to the next thing or whatever, and it's given us time to explore, I think, deeper and wider topics within the game itself. And yeah, we're going to keep it going with Season 11 next year, so stay tuned for the end of the episode. We'll talk a little bit about Season 11 and what to expect there. I guess before we jump into our 2022 games, Mark, how do you feel about Season 10 overall? How has the change been for you?
It's been eye-opening in many ways. It was very, I guess just because a lot of, my choices and the reasoning for them was that I wanted to, revisit a lot of it and see how it holds up now versus how I thought back then about it, or at least try to see if that would ever sync up. So it was just a lot of, experimentation more than anything. And, yeah, it's just interesting to see how things, for lack of a better pun, play out.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. There's a lot on this list that we picked from something we'd played previously, and do our memories of those things hold up? Have they changed? Have they shifted? Do we feel better about it than we did before? Matt, what about you? Generally, Season 10, was it a welcomed break from our norm over the last decade?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's like if you run a marathon and you're actually in shape to do it, and you kind of get the gratification out of it. It's like, holy shit, I probably sank, not every game required 5+ hours, but 40 probably of these games required 5+ hours. They get at least a good grasp, if not until to completion. And you think about holy shit, we kind of averaged one game a week, pretty much to completion, or significant enough to get a good feel to talk about it. On top of all the other shit that we played, it's holy hell, we played a lot of video games this year. And I kind of like being, I don't know, something about being told what to play and having to play it and make myself sit down to play a game that I would never play and ended up liking it or ended up hating it, but being able to say I played that piece of trash. So I don't know. It's it should be exhausting, like a marathon is, or should be, but it wasn't. It felt like I could kind of keep going almost in a weird way.
Well, that's a good thing because we've got more games to do next year.
right. But
no, I know what you mean, and I think that's a good point. It was nice knowing that we had something to play. I felt like there were points in the year, just like anybody, where you're like, I don't know what to play, or I've got these 16 games I bought that I'm doing nothing with. But you know what? We've got this coming up on the podcast in 2 weeks. Let me sit down and just play that now. And you end up getting lost in it or something. That was good to fall back on, and I think also I don't know, it made planning for the show each week easier. in a way. Made it harder because you wanted to make sure you were seeing games through enough, but yeah. We'll talk more on Season 10 in a little bit. My voice is all over the place tonight. But let's talk about 2022 and our favorite games that we played this year. We'll just kind of kick it around and talk about random games that we played. You know what? I'm going to start. I never start. I always kick to one of you, so I will start. One of my favorite video games I played in 2022, Gotham Knights. It's a video game where you play as Batgirl, and if you make another choice, well, it's a choice that you've made, but you play as Batgirl through a... What? Matt's...
I mean, Nightwing's there. I think Nightwing's cool. From far away.
No, honestly, I played as all of them at this point. Actually, I took control of Jason for 1 second, saw the trophy pop, and then switched back to somebody else better. But playing as any of them, it's pretty good. But you kind of do have to stick to one of them or the other, or you kind of have to pick a lane and stay there in order to get optimized like upgrades and all that stuff. Because if you jump around, there's like soft leveling that carries across characters, but some of the like ability upgrades and things, they're tied to specific actions per character. But it was a game that I kind of had very medium expectations for. Like when it was announced, I was very excited for it as a concept. I liked the fact that WB Montreal was getting another shot at a big Batman game. I liked that we got to play as one of 4 possible characters. Like everything going into it was exciting and intriguing, and I thought it sounded and looked good. And then as it came out and getting into it, it's just been a great fun time the whole way through. There's a lot of stuff like about it being an open world that doesn't necessarily feel like a bad open world game. You know, like I think we've all grown a little fatigued with certain things in the open world genre, but this doesn't really feel that way. Like there's some stuff that's kind of like you still have to go hunt down. What is it, Mark? Like 600 batarangs throughout Gotham City, but
that's just scratching the surface too. But yeah. You
have to find these murals. You have to find this, but like and honestly, one of the things that did stink about jumping into it is I'd played Arkham Origins right before this. Not as like a, let me get through this before this game comes out. I just kind of organically had been playing Arkham Origins. And then about a month after I finished it, Knights came out, and your muscle memory from those old Batman games is hard to shake with this game because they really do what they can to introduce a new combat system and new just traversal mechanics. But once you get it, and it doesn't take long to get it, I think this is a really, really great video game from this year. Mark, you played a good bit. Did you finish it?
No, not yet. That's the downside of waiting for a friend to schedule and play it, because I've only been playing this co-op. I haven't done any single player. But
which I feel like a co-op experience for this would be pretty exciting if you had, you know what I mean, a partner to play with.
Yeah, like it makes,
or no, yeah, it's not partners, it's just one. Sorry.
Yeah, it makes a lot of it convenient for sure. A lot of the missions can get done pretty easy. Like if there's that one quest where you have to but like without getting caught, you have to like take whatever like organ they have or something and like take it back somewhere before it loses like its cool or something like that. You could just have one person like hang back and just like fight everyone while the other person just goes and gets it done.
Yeah, that would be so much more convenient to do with a partner, because doing it on your own, it's like you need to sneak around, take everybody out before you grab the organ to take to I forget her name now, but it's Leslie Tompkins' daughter. And if one wrong thing, there's a couple of things like around the edges about this game that just kind of stink, where it's like you think you're about to do a silent takedown and then the reticle disappears and instead you throw a batarang because you were 0.3 degrees to the right of where you were when you first approached. And it's like a little unforgiving in that regard. It feels like a PC game, like a PC point and click kind of thing, where it's like, no, you need to click this exact spot, otherwise, whatever. And yeah, those sting where you have to kind of.
And like the co-op like takedowns are pretty good too. When you can just have like one friend grab an enemy, and then like the other friend, depending on your distance, you pull off like a different cinematic takedown.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Feels good.
But yeah, I also really think I loved Court of Owls when it first came out. Like I was reading, and was I working at a comic shop when that came out? Either way, it was like right around that era where I was very much into monthly books, buying every Batman title. I was full steam ahead. And when Court of Owls came out, I remember it was like so impressive, and obviously it blew up to be this huge comic book phenomenon. But yeah, I think they did the story in Gotham Knights better than the comic was, which is kind of cool. So yeah, we'll see. I'm excited to get to the end of it. I'm just about done with it. But I'm still having fun just like toying around the city. But story wise, like I've cleaned up all of the side missions with the villains and that stuff. I'm just the main campaign. I'm on like the final chapter. But pretty cool. Mark, what else have you besides Gotham Knights? What's something in your top 10 from 2022?
I like Ghostwire Tokyo.
Yeah. That was another one I had highlighted.
It was like I don't know. I mean, it wasn't as creepy as I thought it was going to be, but that's okay. Like, I still liked the vibe and theme of that whole game. I don't think I was doing too many open world games before this, and I think this might have unlocked something in me to want to like kind of play those a little more here and there. It just they had a good way of just stringing you along, and like you are trying to find the next point in the story to progress, but they do a good job of like they keep wanting to distract you from going right to that, when it's like collecting some spirits here and there, or you happen to find some little like treasure or some little side mission that just develops out of nowhere, or like a random like fight encounter can happen, like, and just the different ways of traversing. And it was a really neat way to just go through that and go through the combat and everything. That was I found myself like wanting to like 100% that game, and I ruined it for myself at the very end because I took some time away from it and I kind of forgot what I was doing. And there's like I was trying to get like 3 achievements in one kind of deal, where I was like, hey, like if you collect all the spirits before beating the game and whatever, then like you'll get these like achievements for doing that. But because I beat the game, you can still go back and do stuff afterwards, but I locked myself out of one achievement unless I start the game all over again. It's like, well, that's never mind. Just forget it.
No. Not that I was turning on the game yet. I did get open world fatigue with that one by the end of it, but you really pushed me to explore more of the side content, which I'd played some of, but just your and my conversation about some of the stuff that pops up, there's some really wild and dark and creepy and scary stuff in the side quest you can do. That Piano Man one was very, very good.
Yeah, it's a good nod.
And that was a fun one. Just generally, like the general like yokai integration into that world sparked something in a way that other games hadn't. I think combat could have used like one extra something.
Yeah, it was pretty. It got repetitive pretty quickly with it, but
yeah,
I just kind of got used to it. It wasn't enough to where it like deterred me or anything like that. But
no,
yeah. Could have.
It was like driving in GTA 3. Like it did what it needed to do, but it's not as fun as it could be. But generally, just moving around Tokyo was tons of fun.
Yeah, love that world.
Yeah. Matt, you have a visual prop, or is this for
no,
building up to this?
No, I'm not even going to build up to it. I'm just going to jump right in. I usually would build up, but I think it was obvious I have played and completed and platinumed Elden Ring this year.
Damn.
Just want to show off that I have part 1, not even just a complete thing, part 1 of a strategy guide that is bigger than my head and as thick as, like, Harry Potter.
That's just part 1?
And that's part 1.
Judging by, I'm not in the same room with you, but looking at that, the biggest book I have next to me on the shelf is the Hyrule Historia book. That looks to be about double the thickness of that.
If I have a Apple USB-C power adapter, that is it next to it.
It's about that size.
And this is part 1. I will remind you.
Good
part
night.
2 is
I love that you have a
release
bookmark hanging out from like the quarter-way mark. Have you just been like...
No, not yet.
I
have a feeling come DLC time, I will be referring to this bookmark. First of all, it's, in part of the book is this bookmark. So that way,
it's one of the little
keep track of where you are. Yep. I think just this. I also have a map. I'm not going to show it for spoiler sake for those that want to watch, because the way the map just keeps revealing itself is part of the mechanics I loved. Like, if you know, you know. Like, you go to Leonin Lake, and like you're like, man, this map is pretty fucking big, and then you just kind of keep going, and the map keeps zooming out, and I just love the way the map just keeps zooming out and just revealing like these unexplored territories that you are yet to see, and you see, and like the game, even like when you go back and look at it, like the game fucking teases everything, and you don't even realize it's teasing how far away stuff is, and you haven't gotten to it yet without like realizing after the fact, like, oh my god, you can see the thing all the way from here, and I was supposed to get all the way there from here, and I did end up there. That's crazy. It's nuts. But anyway, this is the best from modern game they've done. This is with me not completing Dark Souls 3, of course, but I will definitively say this is their best, and it's the sheer fact that it does the open world thing. And that sounds, I don't know, you may take that for what it is, but like in any other Dark Souls game, they're kind of linear, right? Like there is passages, but at some point you're going to hit a gatekeeper and some kind of boss, and you're just going to throw your head into a wall trying to beat that boss. And until the end game of this game, you hit a wall with the boss, but then you just say, I'm going to go over there. And you go over there, and you're going to find out quickly whether you belong there or not. But it's like this sense of exploration that we're talking about this game so late into the year that I'm sure you've heard the Breath of the Wild comparisons, but it is that. It's literally like, that looks cool, or I haven't really been over here yet. Let's see what's over here. You're going to quickly find out if you belong or not. And if you do, you kind of keep going. If not, you turn around and you try to run away as fast as you can with turret. That happens a lot. But yeah, it's just, it's Dark Souls with a few more mechanics. There's a jump button this time around, which is, I know, jump button, fucking crazy. That is that revolutionary. But in this game, it is turret and horseback riding feels actually pretty good. Compared to other games like Red Dead's so stiff. I get it's going for realism, but it feels so stiff. Like in this game, like it's very easy to navigate around with torrent, which is quite nice. And when you actually like take the step back, and you, whether you want to or not, but I did, when you start looking through and watching the 6 hours of lore videos created by creators like VatiVidya and others like him, the story is actually kind of fucking wild. You wouldn't really know it watching it, but playing it like you do in these games, you have to read all the item descriptions and do all that. But once you kind of realize like what's going on in the world and why it is the way it is pretty fucking good. I think the one tiny flaw I have with this game is, why does every main character or boss have to start with a G, an R, and an M? Because it gets very hard to remember the difference between, I don't know. I'm trying to think of two characters right now.
I feel like every time I've heard about it, just spoken.
Margit and Margot are very similar looking characters, but are completely different.
Right. Yeah, that I keep hearing a lot
America,
of
Melania. Like
you said G, R, and M.
They're for a reason. Okay. Yeah, Railroad Martin. He didn't. I don't think he named them.
Right. But
Sure.
No, I read because he just sets the scale, which is pretty much the first cutscene. So maybe he did rename them. I'm not sure, but yeah, no, I mean, there's you want to go exploring, or everyone's talked about this game at nauseum. But yeah, this is by far my favorite game of the year. And like the fact that like it was hyped up, I was hyped up for it, anticipated it. Especially coming fresh off of like the Dark Souls series now, finally. A couple years ago, I started them and finished Sekiro and getting the platinum. Like, yeah, I got amped for this. And the fact that it not only hit the expectations, but then like exceeded them, I think is crazy for a game hyped up this much to do, and it certainly did it. And yeah, it is definitely worth a play, in my opinion.
I think speaking of worth a play, I'm gonna preemptively assume something on Mark's list, and if not, I guess we'll just talk about it anyway. But Sonic Frontiers, were you gonna mention that one? No, good. I'm glad. I wasn't going to mention it in like my, just short chat here. It's on my list, but I wasn't going to necessarily talk about it. But since it's on your list, I can pivot right from Matt's Elden Ring conversation and just say like, Sonic Frontiers was one that when it was first announced, we got
here's
such
a shocker
small...
for you, Joe. It's on my list to talk about.
Whoa! Yeah, I did not.
I'm not saying it's number 2 or number 3, but it will land in my top 10. And
I love that.
Talk about it because it's notable.
Yeah, no, it is, right? And like, I think the interesting thing with Sonic Frontiers is like, once we knew that Forces was not great, and that the 30th anniversary was happening for Sonic, it was kind of like, all right, they got to be doing something good, right? Like, there's got to be a big something. And then we had such like enigmatic teasers for the game that it was kind of like you couldn't make a call one way or the other. But the idea that it was open world was like, okay, this is going to be cool. And then we started seeing more of the game, and I think I can speak for all of us when I say it didn't look cool. It looked pretty boring and bad and weird and like a glorified tech demo at best.
Like the first reveal?
That one in June
E3,
when we started
the
to see
IGN
them.
first one.
Yeah, that one where it just looked like...
Yeah, like anything they showed after
grass with some
after that first part, anything they
world.
showed after that, I was just getting more like excited for it.
No, yeah, the closer we got to release, the more it was like ramping up. But the first time we actually saw them running around through the world, it was like, oh, I wasn't expecting this at all. And maybe that helped to deflate expectations a bit, because the final game just is so good through and through. I mean, Mark, you mentioned in the opening, but the boss fights, being able to play as Supersonic, I think were just fun, but also like still perfectly Sonic the Hedgehog in a way.
Yeah,
this game is Sonic Adventure 3 all in, but in name. You know what I mean? Or all in,
definitely.
Name. And it's fun to run around the fields and the areas, even the cyberspace levels, which are more traditional Sonic. They weren't my favorite, but they felt comfortable in a way. And I think that for those types of levels, they were the best they've ever been in a 3D Sonic. Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Some were definitely like callbacks to previous 3D stages and stuff like that, or even 2D ones. But yeah, like some were better than others for the cyberspace stuff, but definitely had most of the fun in just the open world parts, just running around and all that stuff. And for a tone of a game, for a Sonic game, this is like a more matured one for sure too. So in a lot of aspects, this game shook a lot of ground, and I hope they just stick with this foundation.
Yeah, I do too. It surprised me with how good it was, but I'm happy that it lived up to what I'd hoped it would be, and I think went somewhere I didn't expect them to, but I'm happy that they did. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to more of this.
Yeah, I really don't have too much to add. I think the open world is its best part. I really just like once the texture pops in, of course, like seeing that thing far away and then being like, oh, how do you get up there? And then like just randomly hitting a crate, then there's the bouncy thing, and it starts the whole series, which is, I think that's always been the cool part of Sonic, right? Just going fast, like letting kind of just momentum take place, and then it gets bad because you run into a wall and it stops all that momentum, and you have to start platforming, and you're slow and it's clunky, which you get some of that, especially in the cyberspace levels. You get that, which you know they are what they are, but you're in the open world way more than you're in the cyberspace levels, unless you're really trying to 3 or 5. I forget. It's been a bit since I played. Is it 5 stars? What is the how many objectives are there? Like 4 or 5? It's like the coins, the red coins, time, completion.
Is it 4?
I think it is 4.
And no matter what the number, unless you're trying to perfect all and get all those. Yeah, exactly. It's fun. I haven't beaten it. I'm like probably towards the end of Island 2. I kind of dropped it for some other stuff recently. But I mean, I'm gonna go back to it. It was fun, and I like when I started playing, I couldn't put down the controller. I think each of my play times averages like 2 hours.
Yeah.
A lot of that is because I had to put it down because like 1 o'clock on a Sunday came and I wanted to watch football. Like it wasn't because like I had to put it, or it wasn't because I wanted to put it down. It's fun. I had a lot of fun with that. And I will continue to have fun with it.
Yeah, I wonder how long we'll have to wait. Well, I guess we're getting new DLC stuff for it next year, but yeah. Mark, what else did you have on your short list?
Well, if this is going to surprise anyone, you don't know me, but Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Shredder's Revenge is definitely up there. That it's probably their best 2D game yet. Not sure what else I can say. It's like, yes, it's a new game, but it kind of feels like a sequel to Turtles in Time in a lot of ways with the nods they have and some of their boss fights and whatnot. Adding 6-player co-op is insane. It might be a little much, but it's cool that they have it. You know, Splinter is playable, April is playable, Casey Jones is playable. The combinations that you can pull off, just the music alone, just everything about that was just such a nice, well put together little beat 'em up.
I was going to ask, the 6-player co-op, does it get into that weird like Mario Brothers co-op where it's just you're more in the way than you are actually completing a level at that point?
I mean, thankfully, because it's a beat 'em up, you don't have to worry about like coordination too much, but you do get lost a little bit in the chaos.
But you're also not like in Mario, you can like actively bounce off of one another, which works against like progression. But this, you're not necessarily interacting with one another.
Unless you have friendly fire turned on for some reason.
Oh, that too. Is you'd mentioned how a lot of our season 10 list was games that maybe we were revisiting to see how accurate is our memory of these versus where we are today. And I think Shredder's Revenge is very much like, let's take what you remember of those old games and make it feel like you remember. But it's not actually, because those old games were rough. Like, you know, they were a product of their time. I think especially if you look at like the arcade game, it is designed to eat quarters so that there's certain things that happen where now this was designed, you know, to be a modern console game, and I think it was all the better for it. And yeah, we played just about the whole run of that together, and then I had to bounce to eat. But it was just such a good time, and I ended up beating it right after, and it was just a super good game.
Yeah, I really appreciated the story mode they added with this too. So it's, you know, has like a kind of like a Mario 3 overworld, and you just go through each stage as you unlock them and get the experience to unlock like your special attacks and moves and stuff like that. And hardest thing to pull off though is like those team up attacks. It was Like, there's no prompt for it. You just got to get lucky with the lining up with your friend and trying to pull that off or something. But yeah, like, I love that this franchise was able to get something a little more modern, and hopefully, I mean, not hopefully, I'm probably safe to assume that they're going to keep going, even if it's not this company, but just Turtle games in general. Like, I don't think they're done anytime soon.
No, but I would imagine you'd get a direct sequel or something to this with how well it did. Because Game Pass aside, I think this game did really, really well. I had people who, like, I feel like on Game Pass it was a no-brainer for anybody who had it and was mildly intrigued. But I had people that I know don't own an Xbox console that were texting me like, dude, did you check out Shredder's? Like, you know, I bought it on this, I bought it on that, or whatever. It was like, oh, cool. It got out there. Matt, what else is on your short list?
Sonic would have been the next game I talked about, but I'm going to take some time to talk about the one that had gotten away until this year, when I decided to run the entire franchise of main games by Hideo Kojima in the Metal Gear Solid collection, and that is Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater.
Oh, yeah.
It's weird. I had played 1, I had played 2, I had played 4, I played most of 5. I was at the last boss in Peace Walker and just never beat it. And you know, when you get to 4 and 5, there, you know, you get the gist of the story, but there's missing pieces, especially in 5. Especially when you have to go chase the story. A lot of things not clicking that I thought they would. And man, 3 just fucking threads all the missing pieces together. And I don't know, there's something about 3, just gameplay wise. Like, it's not only are you trying to infiltrate the Shagohod and all that stuff, but like, it's also about survival. And I don't know, and for a PS2 game to pull off how much like surviving in the woods for a mission, like, I don't know, it did something truly special gameplay wise. Yeah, and it plays exactly like 2, which is something we played earlier this year. For the most part, there's obviously new mechanics and things like that, but like, it's for the most part top down. You know, with like the fixed camera angles, your bosses the way they are, the weapons, the inventory system mostly the same, obviously. But yeah, with all the different camouflages, how you had to treat your wounds, you know, just how you had to kind of take care of yourself in certain scenarios. The clever boss fights, that there's a lot of clever boss fights. I think the what's his name? Oh shit, I can't remember his name now. But like the old guy who's the sniper, I think that he is like something that gets talked about in this game a lot. And like, to experience that boss, like, it truly is like this slow slog of like, watch your movement. Like, it tests your patience, which like a sniper v sniper battle should, and in a way that I really haven't seen it kind of replicate it in other games that when I think about it. But yeah, no, like, I think the story is really good. I think it sets up the character or Big Boss to like perfectly for what you know him as and what he ends up becoming in later Metal Gear Solid games. And yeah, like replaying. So I replay them all in order, like replaying Peace Walker and replaying 4 and then replaying 5. Like, all of them, obviously they make sense, but like, there's like these little things that I never picked up on. And I know people shit on 5 and a story, but it's there, man. You just gotta go looking for it. And it's a really, like, yeah, everything is just so good. And it's like, I really would love a Metal Gear Solid 6, I think, if done by Kojima again somehow in some alternate universe. But man, if 5 is where they leave it, it kind of just full circles the entire. Like, 4 is the perfect chef's kiss to the series, and 5 is the thing that brings it all together. Yeah, it's like, it ends. People bitch about that ending, but I think it's perfect. It's perfect to set it all up for Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2, like OG Metal Gear. Yeah, it's really good. And I'm glad I'm glad that this list kind of stirred me to play it.
Yeah, that was an interesting side effect of some of these older games. Mark, did you have anything else on the short list you wanted to talk about?
Not really. I mean, because two of them we already kind of had shared, and
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess a weird small shout out to Vampire Survivor for almost making the list, but it didn't quite make it. But I figured it should get a mention.
No, yeah, that game definitely took over for a good bit, and I'm still poking at it from time to time. It's something special on that one. My last little one I wanted to mention was gifted a Dreamcast for Christmas last year, so I got to dive into the Dreamcast library for the first time. And one game I'd always heard about but never got the chance to really experience was Tokyo Extreme Racer. And it's the perfect blend of like arcade racing with open world navigation, even though it's just one single highway in Tokyo. But I love that the whole game is you buy a car, or maybe you start with one. You drive around this highway, you find people who are racing, you flash your headlights at them, you race them. In order to win, you need to be in front of them, and then that starts ticking down their health bar like a fighting game. As long as you stay in front of them, their health bar will deplete. You get money. That's it. Once you get enough money, you can upgrade your car or buy another car, and that's it. There's nothing else. I think in a year where I also really enjoyed Gran Turismo 7, this was just like a welcomed different type of racing game in that regard. Yeah. Dreamcast, Tokyo Extreme Racer. Check it out. For listeners, that's just a little peek at the things that I think we all loved and enjoyed playing or spending time with in 2022. I know I also spent a bunch of time with the PlayStation Portable this year. I know that Matt has invested a significant amount of time in racing. I mean, a lot. So to read up more on all of our top 10s and things we enjoyed from 2022, check out thefreecheese.com, where we've got full write-ups of things and the full list and a little bit more detail. But now we turn our attention towards Season 10, and specifically we're going to run down the entirety of the list here before we wrap for the episode. But before we do that, just looking at the list of games that we played. Of course, listeners, if you'd like, you can follow along at thefreecheese.com/thelist. But Matt, Mark, what surprised you this season? I'm intentionally broad with that question, but what surprised you this season?
For me, it was Burnout 3.
That did become your beacon of hope at the end of the day.
Yeah, I keep thinking back to it, and just the initial impact that game had on me, because this was a franchise that I barely ever touched. I might have gotten it mixed with a different game, probably, in my head as well, as I tend to do. But I felt like I should have been kicking myself for not playing this one sooner. And it's definitely my kind of racing game. Everything it hit the right vibes for me with that one. And it was, even though I haven't played it before, it still felt nostalgic. And I think that was probably because of the music that they had in the game.
Yeah.
And you have the cheesy DJ in there.
Of an era that you can just fall right back to.
It hit a lot of the right notes for me. And for a game to do that, off the start, is kind of a rare thing for me. So, yeah, that's been my biggest surprise.
Matt, how about you? What surprised you this season?
I think Deadly Premonition might be the biggest surprise for me and the list, and just I think us in general. I I don't know. Like, I didn't know terribly a lot about this game, but like, it's the butt of a lot of jokes. It looks terrible. Like, graphically, it looks terrible for the era it came out in. And I don't know. A lot of people made fun of this game, so I slightly concerned that this was going to be bad. Then I didn't know it was open world, so then like when I realized it was open world, like less than an hour into it, I was like, oh great, like now this is a bad open world game on top of that. But as you keep playing, I don't know. I'm not saying it's a great game, but man, it's good. I think it should be played by a lot of people. It got like I don't know. Like I still keep up with this dumb Zach joke I do with myself at work. I don't know. I don't know. It's made me think of games, I think, in a different way. I think it like transcended this list in a way than just being a game that is number 14 of 45 games.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't even have it rated that high as far as my number. I think I gave it a 3 out of 5, but it feels more than a 3 out of 5 in the way we talked about it, the way we appreciated it, and the way I think it's still occupying, my brain months later.
Yeah, I don't think it'll go away either. Like, it's that one just kind of, I only ever knew of it from its kind of like notoriety, but it turns out it's a pretty wild, fun game. I still have the whistle song stuck in my head from time to time. Yeah. I think something, I mean, Matt, you talked about this in the opening, but I am generally surprised that we did it. Like, we played 45 games. Did not. Looking ahead, I think it made sense a year ago that we were going to do this and that, like, it was doable. And then we got into, like, month 3, and it was like, oh my god, I can't believe we still have all these games to play. But we did it. I'm surprised that we did it. Matt, is there a game that you expected you would like, but ended up not liking so much? It fell short from your anticipated expectation of it?
I actually have a couple games, but I want to see what you all say. But I will lead off. Tokyo Jungle. It's high on the list. I rated it high. But man, there are some frustrating things about progression and my favorite, the minute of playtime before the game actually starts. That I bitched about on air. I remember this game being excellent, like A, maybe even A+. And I was very disappointed to realize it's like a B.
It's great. It's a
really
great
good
game. It's a great concept, but there's just enough around the edges that it just makes it difficult to enjoy wholly, 10 years later.
Yeah, I mean, it's still like, when you look at the list, like, it's still high. It falls in our recommended thing, but man, like I thought going into, like, I think that was one of the games that I played that week going into it. There's quite a handful of those that ended up happening, but that week going into it playing right before the podcast, I was like, man, I don't know, Wii Sports is ranked at this rate, but I'm like, man, good luck Wii Sports, because this is a banger. And then I played it, I was like, this is not the banger I remembered it to be, which I still like it, but I don't talk as fondly about it anymore.
Mark, how about you?
So, I figured with this, I would have to pick a game that I had submitted to this list. And unfortunately, a lot of these games qualify for that.
No.
But the one that I'm going to pick is NBA Hang Time.
That one let you down?
It did in the end, because I remember having such fond memories of this, and I thought this would just be a fun game to go back into and not have to, like, stress about it, whatever, like, I knew what it was, I knew what to do, and then all of its blemishes started to stand out like very bad scars, and, like, the time on everything is just annoying, and I could never beat the first game no matter how hard I was trying to play and, like, develop my skills. That AI just love to just rub it in and beat you by like 1 point, and I would start like pulling my hair out over this. And
Yeah.
I just wanted to have fun. I just wanted to have a fun, good time with this silly arcade basketball game, and then it ended up becoming more stressful than anything for all the wrong reasons. And it was just disappointing. So,
Well, not only would you lose by 1 point, but you would lose your created character by 1 second as well.
Hmm.
yeah,
Of course, there was that.
yes. And so it's like, this game needs Game Shark, otherwise don't play it.
Yeah. I guess if I'm sticking to things that I'd picked that I thought would be fun to revisit, Sunset Overdrive did not hold up the way I thought it did. And I just played that like 4 years ago, so it's not like it had been, a decade. Like Tokyo Jungle surprised me as well that it fell short, but it had been a decade. Game tastes have changed. Our tastes have changed. I think the other thing too, like even looking at NBA Hang Time, is playing a lot of that stuff. I think we had a lot more free time back then, and we had fewer things competing for our attention. So it was easier to kind of accept things that were a little rough. And now it's just like, if it's not optimized, if it's not perfect, I got other things that I can move on to. And that makes it tough. But yeah, Sunset Overdrive was the epitome of open world fatigue. That I think was a lot of fun, but things that would ultimately be realized in, like Spider-Man and its sequel that flow a little bit easier. Was there a game that you were not looking forward to, Mark, that ended up being pretty high for you personally this year?
Yeah. Mass Effect 2.
Dude, same.
Like, just the buzz around it when it first came out, I just didn't care. It felt very like a quote normie quote game.
yeah.
What have you. It had this generic flavor to it from afar.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just wanted nothing to do with it. I thought I was too cool for it at the time, whatever. And it just wasn't my thing. And then I had a very unique experience with this franchise because I decided to go above and beyond and also play the first game to transfer my character into this one. And I ended up being way more invested than I thought I ever would be, to where I eventually want to play the third one and see my character story through.
Yeah.
And had not been for this podcast, I probably would have had a very much different ending than what I've gotten. So I am thankful that I'm able to continue, or else it just would have ended. I probably would have lost my entire crew, honestly.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that I got to play it and see what's different from the first one and everything like that. And definitely opened me up to it.
Yeah, I had that where I just going into it, I was like, this is not my type of game. And then playing it for the first 10 hours or so, I don't know how many hours, I did not enjoy the game at all. And I tried to get at it early. Like, I was playing it back in June, knowing we had a little while to play it, and then something clicked, and I really, really liked it. And yes, now I want to go back to 1 and go all the way through the trilogy again. At some point, I was very shocked that ended up that way for me. Matt, what about you? Anything that was like, I don't know about this one, but ended up?
It's not because of his reputation or anything. It's just one of those. There was a couple games this year that I had no idea until I opened it what the hell it was, and Gitaroo Man was one of them.
Yeah.
Like, I did not know I was getting into a weird ass Japanese rhythm game. There was zero expectation, but I'd never heard of it. And I would think that was if it was an A+ title or something, I've at least heard of it and maybe not know what it is. But Sin and Punishment is another example. I may have heard of it at some point in my life, but I didn't know what it was. This, I had no idea. Zero clue. And it ended up being quite a delightful little game. I thought the way the rhythm was handled with the way you move the stick around was very clever. I like that mechanic a lot. and like the songs, I can't really think of like a standout song, but I think it was because I liked them all a lot. It wasn't like there was definitely that difficulty ramp up at the end, which maybe makes some songs more frustrating to play, but I didn't like hate listening to a song. Yeah, no, it was really cool. I liked the story, everything besides that pause button being an exit, which is bizarre. It's so bizarre, but it is what it is, I guess. But no, I with a game, never heard of it, zero expectation, and ended up, kind of probably being towards the top of my personal list when it comes to this list.
I had that with Star Fox Assault. Not that I was not looking forward to playing it, because I was excited that we had a Star Fox game on the list, but this was one that it's not, I don't think, widely held in high regard or anything. Like, obviously people go back to 64. The GameCube ones are looked at as the GameCube ones. And I've heard some good things about but like, it just, but it ended up like, I genuinely had a great time playing Star Fox Assault, and was actively bummed that there was not a direct sequel to it to chase down somewhere. Like, there's another world out there where there's a Wii game that capitalizes on the end of this, and but no such luck. Is there a game from the list? I know, Mark, you mentioned Mass Effect 2 is going to carry you into 3, but is there anything on here? I guess, Mark, you also mentioned Burnout 3 Takedown. Is there something on here specifically that you're like, I'm going to keep playing this, or I will replay this? Is there something like that for you, Mark?
Yeah, I think Metal Gear Solid 2 deserves a revisit. I don't think I gave that one as much time as I should have. And Kojima games are a bunch that I haven't really took a full dive into, and I think I'm not sure if I would even want to play the first one before the second one, or just go right into the second one and then maybe jump in the other ones later. I don't know how I want to go about it yet, but it's definitely something I've held off for a good while, and I think it deserves proper attention.
I would recommend 1 before 2, by the way.
Okay.
Like, I do not follow the. Well, I guess 2 is after 1 timeline, but don't follow the timeline. It's going to make no sense.
Right.
That was what I played all of 1. It's weird. Like, I talked to Tokyo Extreme Racer in the Dreamcast, but I was playing Dreamcast stuff and Metal Gear Solid 1, kind of handing off back and forth, and watching Sopranos. So I had this very weird late 90s, early 2000s beginning to 2022 that carried directly into Metal Gear Solid 2, and then I ran into stupid technical issues with 2 that I don't even remember now. Oh, I think the disc froze, and then I got kicked back save point like a super long, and it was just like, I'm not going to have time to do this before we get recording. So I didn't beat it, but I got a good chunk into it, and having just come off of 1, I was like so excited for it. That's a really good answer. I didn't think about that.
The end of 2 is it's like a Mexican standoff if it happened 8 times over. It's like only Kojima can get away with something so ridiculous.
Yeah. What about you, Matt? Is there one on the list that you...
Downwell. I did not play that the right way. I should give it the respect it deserves on something that has joystick or directional buttons directional buttons, a joystick, and some kind of buttons to represent shoot and jump, and not a touchscreen.
You've been playing that Vita quite a bit. I think that's a pretty good.
Well, that Vita leads into the next question you're going to ask. So,
I'm looking back through everything we've got on the list at like other things that maybe, like, honestly revisiting some of those PS2 titles, like SSX Tricky, Burnout 3, like that stuff. It's like, oh, there's an era of games that I rented but never owned, that now that I've got the equipment set up to play original hardware in that capacity, I'm like, I want that to be like, that's the thing. Like, I would love to do from time to time, and I do it, but like where I just play something to play it. And I think like Burnout 3 and SSX are things where I could very easily just like, I'm not doing anything tonight. I'm just gonna go play a bunch of levels in SSX. It would be a great time. Yeah, I guess the next question, and perhaps final question, unless you guys have anything for season 10, kind of as a broad overlook. But what franchise do you want to see more from, or have you already started to see more from, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, so one to preface is like some of these games, like I want to see more of it, but it is out there for me to go get. And I guess one of those examples is Parasite Eve, which is my answer. But it seems like it comes to a quick halt after 2 and the third birthday, and I feel like it needs some kind of revisiting. But yeah, I threatened to do it with Max Payne. I didn't. But yeah, no, this I straight up, after we talked about 1, I was kind of itching to play something, and I was like, let's just keep going. And I bought 2, and 1, I like it. It's not Parasite Eve 1, I will say that. It plays a bit differently and a bit more like your Resident Evil counterpart. However, it's still cool. The story is slow, but I feel like something's got to happen at some point. I got a tease of it, which is exciting. I just hope it follows through with it. And then I heard the third birthday is a little bit of a mess on PSP, so we'll see what that's like probably after finishing Parasite Eve 2. But yeah, no, Parasite, yeah, that was a delightful surprise, and I want to continue seeing more of that game.
Yeah, I should finish 2 as well. I didn't. Yeah. Mark, how about you? Is there a franchise that you're now suddenly infatuated with?
There's a franchise I'm infatuated with, kind of. Quake.
Ah.
I'm not sure if I'll like all the other games because I haven't played them yet, but as far as the first one goes, I do love that one. Yes, I would like to see more from that, but because I have the first one to rely on, I'm okay with just playing that first one. But I think a series that I would like to see more from is Billy Hatcher.
Yeah.
And listeners, this is a game that is at near bottom of our list. It was
it's 40.
That was going to be the game I expected to like that fell short. But I do see the potential in this game. It's not all bad. I see what it's trying to do and what it can be, and with how Sega is lately, they seem to have got a good grip on soft booting some of their franchises.
Yeah,
like a Dragon's going in a good direction. Sonic has now started to go in a good direction. Fingers crossed. Like Virtua Fighter even got some improvements here and there, even though it was a port basically. But
Sega is reaching back in a way. So.
Right. And then since Atlas, Persona starting to get more out there, so it's like they seem to have a better grip now. And the way that Monkey Ball kind of came back, I think there's something there that Billy Hatcher could use from in a modern controls setting, modern gameplay, tightened up, polished stuff. I feel like it could thrive more today. So yeah, I would love to rinse the bad taste out of my mouth from that and have something like that.
I want to see more of Beautiful Joe. I really, while we were playing Beautiful Joe, I kept wishing I could play it in my hands and not on the TV. It was great playing it on original hardware on PS2, but it was man, if they had ported this to Vita or PSP or modern times, if they could port it to Switch, which very surprised, especially after having played that. I'm super surprised that it has not been greenlit to come to Switch, unless it's I don't know, maybe who knows? There's probably a reason why it hasn't been done, but yeah, I would very much appreciate a port of those, but definitely a Beautiful Joe 3, I think would be an interesting, a proper, because I know there were some DS spin-offs and stuff like that, but a proper one would be interesting. And then, this is going to sound weird, but Mario Kart Double Dash. There's a lot of ideas within Double Dash that have been abandoned that I love Mario Kart 8 and I still play it. Like the new tracks just dropped a couple weeks back and I jumped in and I played through it. Like it's fun. And talking about it right now, I'm like, you know what? That's what I'll do tonight. I'll go play Mario Kart. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is fantastic, but there's something about those old Mario Kart games, like from the core on SNES all the way up through any of them. There's always something special and weird about them. And Double Dash had a lot of unique elements to it that I'd like to see revisited. Granted, and hopefully, the next proper Mario Kart, which will be in 2024 if I were a betting man. That'll probably end up just being Nintendo Kart or Smash Kart or whatever they want to call it. But
Mario Kart 9, everyone's here.
That's the one. But if they did everyone's here and also put your buddy on the back of the cart and have weird combo items, like there's a lot of interesting things they could do in that space. Yeah. So before we jump in and kind of look back at the list, is there anything else, any other games you wanted to kind of just highlight or call attention to that stand out?
Quake was one of the games I was referring to earlier about wanting to see games through, but there's there's the additional, I don't want to call it DLC, I forget its proper name. Oh, episodes. The additional episodes within one I haven't beaten yet. And there's 2. I guess 3 is Arena, but then there's 4. There's plenty of Quake to be had if I want to go seek it. So, but Quake is a badass game, and that is yeah.
Yeah. Mark?
Not really. I think I said my piece.
Yeah. I will say, barring the 45th entry on the list, I don't think that we had a single bad game on the list. I know that we had to rank them somehow, and that we ended up with 44 ranked games and one game that's truly a bad game. But I think they were all good in their own merit. Maybe some were better than others, but nothing that we picked ended up being outright disappointment or something where I said, I'm not playing this, except for one. Would you agree with that, or?
I mean, more or less, yeah. I mean, that's pretty accurate.
I know Billy Hatcher did not live up to what you thought, right? But wholly, I don't think it was a disappointment.
Yeah.
I
mean, my only issue was Stanley Cup. That's only because my eyes just couldn't handle it. But
right, yeah.
I think aside from that, it is still a playable game. I know that it is that, and it's not like, I don't think any of these games were because of other reasons of hey, we're a minute in and screw this.
Yeah.
You listen back to any of these episodes. I don't think we were ever just we weren't just outright trashing a game. It was just a lot of we might have some disappointments with something, but yeah, they're all playable though to some point.
Yeah, it's playable.
So why don't let's just read the list from bottom to top in case you're not on the website. We'll just read it definitively as it is. I'm going to go with 5 of them, and then I'll kick to Mark and then to Matt, and we'll just keep going around 5 at a time. Does that sound good? Or do you just want me to read it all? Whatever. Yeah, it's a good...
Great. 5.
All right. So, at number 45, Blinx the Time Sweeper. 44, Paperboy 2. 43, Cool Spot. 42, Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg. And 41, ESPN X Games skateboarding. Mark, number 40.
Oh, sorry. 40, you have Sunset Overdrive. 39, we have NHL Stanley Cup. 38, NBA Hang Time. And 37, Gauntlet 7 Sorrows. And 36, Chameleon Twist 2.
And at 35, you have Top Gear Rally. 34, Devil's Crush. 33, Peggle. 32, ESPN NFL Football. 31, PsyOps, The Mind Gate Conspiracy.
At 30, Perfect Dark. 29, Valis 3. 28, The Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap. 27, Star Fox Assault. And 26, Parodius From Myth to Laughter.
And then coming in at 25, we have Bomberman 93. 24, X-Men 2, Clone Wars. And 23rd, Mass Effect 2. 22nd, we have Advanced Buster Hawk Glylancer. 21, we have SSX Tricky.
20, we have Mario Kart Double Dash. 19, Gitsuru Man. 18, Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty. 17, Beautiful Joe. And then at 16, we have Tokyo Jungle.
At 15, 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors. 14, Deadly Premonition. 13, Parasite Eve. 12, Burnout 3, Takedown. And 11, Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed.
At 10, we have Max Payne. Placing 9th, we have WWF No Mercy. 8, we have Downwell. 7 is Res Infinite. And coming in at 6th place, Sin and Punishment.
Then our top 5. At number 5, we have Pikmin 3. 4, Portal 2. Number 3, Hotline Miami. Number 2, Quake. And then our top rated game at number 1, Wii Sports.
Did either of you think Wii Sports was going to be the number 1 game for the season?
I had a feeling.
You did, going into like a year ago.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Didn't we do another list, or we did some kind of spot? I forget the segment before this year, but we talked about Wii Sports in a very high manner going into this year, and I had a feeling it was going to be number 1.
Interesting. Did you, Mark?
I had a feeling it was going to place high. I wasn't sure about number 1. And then once it reached number 1, I was starting to really question what was going to top it. And I thought for a second it was going to be Quake, but I couldn't really see anything else going above it.
Well, I have a question. Knowing what you know about Season 11, without revealing any games, do you think that something has the potential to beat out Wii Sports? It's tricky, because...
Yeah, well, actually, Tricky's 21, but...
Oh, yeah.
No, I kind of forgot some of the games that I had already submitted.
I know, me too. I keep going, because there's
I went back.
So many games
I'm looking
that
at the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there could be 1 or 2.
I think there could be 1 or 2, maybe. I also, just to tease a little bit, there are some games that we're doing for Season 11 that have not released yet, so we don't truly know, and those could always end up rising to the top. So yeah, who knows? Matt, you got a good feeling after looking at any of these?
No.
Oh, no.
I think Wii Sports stand number 1.
Which wouldn't be a terrible thing.
There's one sleeper. It depends where we all land on it and how fondly I might remember it. But there is a potential winner, I think.
That one? I think I know the one. All right. Well, I think I know. We'll talk. Well, yeah. I guess we'll find out. So that's the list. If you want to view the list, you can do that at thefreecheese.com/the list. You can email us at podcast@thefreecheese.com and let us know which games we should have ranked higher, lower, moved around, not nominated at all. You also have time to nominate games for Season 11 because, listeners, while the three of us have already met, we've shared all of our game selections, we're doing something a little bit differently next year. I know we've talked a bunch this episode that we're impressed with the fact that we're able to play 45 games in a year. But it was quite a bit of a grind at a certain point, so we've shrunken the list a little bit. So we'll be doing 30 games next year. Oh, but Joe, there's 52 weeks in a year. What are you going to do? We're still going to have a weekly episode every week, brought to you by thefreecheese.com. But instead of every week being a game that we played a game we decided to play for the podcast, some weeks we're just going to have an off-topic episode that's more conversational, exploratory, that we're planning out. Other weeks we might end up organically just putting something on the list. If there's a game that all three of us ended up playing and having a good time with, like, for example, Vampire Survivors, we all jumped into this year. Next year, because we have a little bit more wiggle room in the schedule, maybe we end up doing an episode just dedicated to Vampire Survivors, and then because we'd all played it and whatever, and then we end up dropping that onto the list. So next year we have a little bit of room for that. But we also have room for your submissions. So if there's something that you would like to see that, we could reasonably play, we tried to be a little bit smarter about total length of video games when we selected our 30 for next year. But yeah, I'm very excited for what we've got for Season 11. And I think we had a great Season 10. For next episode, it'll be the first episode of the new year in 2023. So, of course, we'll be doing our 2023 predictions. We'll be seeing what we got correct and incorrect from 2022. And we'll kind of give you the layout of what to expect for Season 11 as a whole, and definitely set up the first month of Season 11 for you. So come back next week, hang out with us then. Until then, wait, can we close out on, what was your favorite game from this year? Did we do that? We didn't do that.
Like from the list, or?
Yeah. What was your favorite game from our thefreecheese.com/the list?
Probably gonna say
do that at you guys.
Quake.
Yeah. Quake was it?
Quake was a mood.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna also say Quake, with revisiting No Mercy years later and it still being the best fucking wrestling game, period.
Yeah.
Now, Quake, though, I remember sitting right in the chair I sit in now and facing my monitor that I kind of use for this, and just it being like a reasonable temperature in the basement, windows open or whatever, but just sweating. Just back sweat, and that was like level 2. It wasn't even like end game. Quake was an experience that I don't think I was ready for.
Well, now I feel like a goon if I don't say Quake, so I'm going to say Quake. I did really like Res Infinite, and I did really like Star Fox Assault. Really stands out to me this year. I don't know why, but something special about it. But no, Quake was finally getting through Quake and seeing the end and playing multiplayer with all of you. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, had we not have played that, I probably would have said Sin and Punishment as my second choice.
That was a great game.
Res was up there for me too. I know I didn't really talk about it today, but Res was really good.
Yeah. Well, that is that. That's Season 10 in a nutshell. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, listener, for listening. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.